Mississippi's trusted weather experts. This is Mississippi Live Weather at 10.
Attempt number 2. Hey, second time's always the lucky time, right? Welcome into Mississippi Live Weather at 10. Go ahead and let us know down in the chat if those audio issues are still there, but we do hope that they're fixed and we're able to talk more about this severe weather threat looming on our Friday. Welcome into Mississippi Live Weather at 10. I'm meteorologist Gabe Maynor, joined alongside Chief Meteorologist Matt Laupon, hopefully giving an update on that audio here shortly, but also updating us on this forecast as well. What we're going to be tracking here on the 10 o'clock hour is getting ready for Friday's severe weather threat. And the primary things we're looking at 10 is going to be those latest model projections for the timing and impacts. And we're also going to be looking at those primary threats expected as this system rolls into the area. So let's go ahead and get this started with the first 12. And the first 12, we're definitely in the calm before the storm. So Matt, are we looking good?
I think we're looking good. Seems like audio is in good shape on this as well. The things are largely in pretty good shape here. One of the things that you mentioned a moment ago there is, we have a situation here where dew points have come up, but we're still waiting for them to get a lot more significant, right? And I think that's one of the critical factors. How much moisture do we have on the severe weather threat? What I'm going to be looking at here in a couple of minutes is I'm going to be digging into kind of some of the comparisons in the models. I've been looking at the ones that have come out this evening. We'll have that for you kind of at the beginning of the next block. We're going to do kind of a shortened day block from here as Gabe, obviously the severe weather threat is one of the big headlines, right?
For sure. And one of the things that we're going to be tracking here at 10 o'clock and heading into your Wednesday is short-range models are finally coming out. So we're getting a better idea on what to expect, lining up with those long-range projections. And so both of those coming into tact, and that's where we're going to get a better idea on this risk area as well. As of right now, level 2 threat in place for North Mississippi, as well as a few of our Northwest Alabama folks. So we are continuing to watch this system as it moves in on Friday. But before we get there, we actually do have multiple systems moving in place beforehand. Of course, zooming this out, you can see this cold front moving right overhead. That's taking out a little bit of the moisture that's in the area right now, and high pressure circulates in some of that drier air. But watch as we move overnight how this system works its way east, and high pressure follows suit. I mean, we're talking about a pretty speedy ridge that's overhead, and so that drier air is not going to stick around forever. By the time we get into our really Wednesday afternoon, you can already see some of those southerly winds going to be building back into North Mississippi, and of course destabilizing our atmosphere and giving us that moisture resurgence that is being briefly taken away. So this is by noontime, and we're already getting those winds a little bit more out of the south there in Texas and Arkansas, and of course building east into North Mississippi into those late Wednesday hours. So the next 24, get an idea on these winds. Northerly winds to start the day, easterly winds by midday, and then we're back into the southerly winds by the end of the day. So this dry spell not going to last forever, and the warmth not going anywhere, despite those dry conditions being overhead. High temperatures do top out around the upper 60s with a few low 70s possible. Not exactly record setting, but we're not too far away from that. So that shows how un-January-like these temperatures are and this forecast is. So coming up in the next 60, we're going to be breaking down this threat in more detail. We're talking threat tracker, we're talking hour by hour, and of course breaking that down in full detail live from the Room to Room Weather Center for Mississippi Live Weather at 10 in the next 60.
As a bankruptcy firm, Mitchell, Cunningham & Bowling realizes many people are worried about their finances. We're here to guide you through the next steps to restart your life with easy video appointments. New clients don't have to leave home to get information about becoming debt-free. Also, convenient in-office appointments are available at the low cost of $340 upfront for a Chapter 13. You can be on your way to being debt-free. Contact Mitchell, Cunningham & Bowling today or visit our website at mcdebtfree.com. We are here to help you.
People tell me how lucky my daughter is to have been adopted. But really, we're the lucky ones. Learn more at adoptuskids.org.
What I thought was a complete life was nowhere near complete. But it is now.
Learn about adopting a teen at adoptuskids.org.
Right now, from the Room to Room Weather Center, here's meteorologist Gabe Maynor.
Level 2 out of 5 severe weather threat in place as we get into our Friday. And of course, the main factors we're watching, it's going to be those gusty winds. And so we talked about it at 6, but this is an exclusive look at those peak wind gusts as we track over the next several days. So getting a look at the top of your screen, you can see calm to about 10 miles an hour on those peak wind gusts for our Wednesday. So not exactly going to be a breezy day. But as we get into our Thursday, look at these southerly winds already building back into the area, 10 to 20 miles an hour. And so that's building back that moisture pretty quickly and setting the scene for a much active Friday, much more active, should I say. So as we get into our Thursday evening, of course, those winds getting a bit more breezy ahead of that frontal system. But as that front starts to work its way into the area, and even that warm front that's building over the top of North Mississippi overnight and for the start of our Friday, you can see that we're talking 20 to potentially 30 mile an hour gusts ahead of this system. So if you're wondering how the moisture restabilizes itself so quickly, this is exactly why. With breezy conditions out of the south, doesn't take much to build back some of that moisture over the top of North Mississippi. So as we work our way into that afternoon forecast, you can see that it is going to be a breezy day even into our Friday. And some of those gusts do get into those 30 to 40 mile an hour ranges. So Matt, gusty conditions even ahead of the frontal system, of course, going to be a main factor as we work our way into Friday.
And we expect a lot of those storms, are developing ahead. Go ahead and click that on through there, because you see that's the first of the storms starting to show up on that. And essentially look at this as, and we'll stop right there at 9 p.m., as the peak wind gust anybody will see between basically now and Friday. And clearly it's when the storms are around Friday we're seeing those peak wind gusts. But there's some spots on there, south of Water Valley, toward Grenada there. Well, you see that would be up here in kind of this odd gray sort of color. That's where we're talking about potentially severe wind gusts. So it's not everybody, but there are going to be pockets out there where we do kind of possibly meet that threshold. One of the questions related to that, though, comes back to timing. And that's one of the things that I've been working on here between newscasts. We're looking at a couple different things. We're going to look kind of the grimy behind the scenes stuff here. This is what we would call theta E. Well, what is that important? What is that? So it's kind of, if you take the moisture and heat together, it's a form of potential temperature. And anyway, the point of it being, where you see the brighter colors, and you can see that kind of at the bottom there on the scale, that's where there's a greater amount of, at least at the surface level there, a combination of moisture and heating. So it gives us an idea of like kind of where essentially the peak heating from this will go. So you can see at the bottom the different models, the GFS, sometimes we call that the American model there, the European model has a little more fuel, a little farther east, and then that kind of the dip in the middle. You might say, well, what is this big hole in this, or at least the lighter colors there, which indicates less fuel in our different projections there. That signifies those showers, those storms that kind of develop earlier in the day, kind of eat into the overall fuel. So I'd say the positioning for kind of the main area where we have the greatest potential for heating remains back closer to the Mississippi River there. Certainly our NAM and GFS, which are two of our American models indicating that, and the European one, as we get back to that there again, shows that bigger area back to the west, but it also, again, has those storms developing ahead. So that's one of the things that we're going to have to really kind of resolve as we go forward. Similar kind of idea when you look at the moisture there. Anytime I'm looking at dew points, to measure moisture based on the same scale as the temperature, this isn't a projection that I think does necessarily super well at this time frame out there, but you can see how there's kind of this little gap across much of North Mississippi on the GDPS there. But ultimately, I'm looking for those dew points that are up here, 66 or so. Still, as of midday Friday, back to the south and west. And the reason I'm choosing midday Friday is a lot of my higher resolution projections go from there. And in each case, there's this area in the delta where I have those mid-60s dew points. So here's what I think this comes down to. Even looking at CAPE, our fuel that we kind of judge in this situation here, certainly kind of maximize back to the west. I'm going to bring up in particular, as I'm looking at a bunch of different things on our projection here, just the precipitation output kind of based on the latest time frame here. And so one of the ways we do that, where's accumulated precipitation? Well, I'm going to have to go to a different model. So give me just a second here to pull up our Euro model for that. Precipitation, there we are, sea level pressure and precipitation. So again, that has kind of that slightly farther east positioning on that, and this projection here is the midday run of the European. So again, really kind of focusing on, do we get some stuff developing earlier there and not much behind that. So that initial wave there could be the one that kind of cuts things off. Most of my projections, I'm going to see if I can hard code this for, I think that's 66 hours. Yeah. We'll make sure as I switch between these, hopefully it should stay on that. We look 66 hours out. You know, we also in our NAM, that's not quite 66 hours. Let's go a little farther out there on that. You know, see how we kind of have this flare up of storms, but see how it's just a little bit farther back to the north and west. And so that difference there kind of places more of North Mississippi in the zone where we could potentially have some of these strong, severe thunderstorms. Again, this is not a particularly high resolution model, but clearly this keeps the far northern portion of the area most in it on what we call the North American mesoscale model. So I'm going to bring Gabe back in here for a moment as he is kind of on some of our deterministic models and talking through kind of where we're at with this. I think the thing to keep in mind is that we expect the positioning on this to probably shift just a little bit. But I think the takeaway should be North Mississippi, you do have that risk area in place. And I think some people are like, why do we have that risk area in place? The models are a little southeast. I think, again, it's really possible we get cut off from that most unstable air because of the storms where they're positioned on our models, but it would not take much for that to migrate back to the north and west, and that's the scenario where more locations in North Mississippi get it. So Gabe, I know you're going to be looking at our exclusive strike model here. It goes out and looks at some rotation, things like that. But certainly expect positioning to vary a little bit each and every one of these, which is why it's so important to check out Maggie tomorrow, and of course what we're saying tomorrow night, not just lock into what we're saying tonight.
Exactly. I think the most essential thing that folks can do, of course, we talked about the layers of protection, but that's also tuning in over the next 24 hours as more of those short-range models become available and this forecast becomes more aligned for timing as well as those impacts. But we have a good idea right now. We're just going to fine-tune that over the next several days. So day planner right now, of course, going to be calm overnight. Potential for a sprinkle, not an impossibility due to some of that moisture lingering in the forecast, but we do forecast mostly dry conditions. So as we take a look at Futurecast, of course, that front moving right overhead, clearing out a large part of the moisture, but we are dealing with some dense fog in place for those morning commuters, especially those early morning commuters. So make sure to use those low beams heading out the door, getting a little bit of this fog already starting to form by 2 a.m. and that becoming more dense and more in coverage by the time we get towards that morning commute. So of course, be safe in your morning commute, but this is just one of the many hazards that will build in over the next several days. Your low temperatures due to the moisture in the air, of course, going to be limited for how much we cool off. But I do expect a few mid-40s right along the Tennessee state line. But as we work our way further south, look at the temperature contrast. 50 degrees Tupelo, 56 in Starkville, and 58 down around Louisville. So some of these record high minimums record high minimums. I know it's a weird way to word it, but basically that is a realistic possibility for the start of our Wednesday. So luckily for students out there and teachers, looking like a mild start today with 50 degrees at the pickup there at the bus stop, 69 degrees by drop off at the end of the day. All right, let's go ahead and work our way into Futurecast throughout our Wednesday. And as you see, dry conditions overhead, a little bit of cloud cover here and there, but honestly, we should get a little bit of a break up there right along the Tennessee state line. So yes, mostly cloudy skies, but sunshine will make an appearance here and there. So as we work our way into the lunchtime hour, still with those dry conditions, but mostly cloudy skies remaining in place, and that'll carry over into those afternoon hours as well. So for any folks that are trying to make some plans outside in the afternoon, I think we're going to be good to do so because of those dry conditions that are still overhead, but gloomy conditions don't exactly make it a picture-perfect day. Your high temperatures Wednesday not going to be impacted by that cloud cover. We're still climbing well above our normal for this time of year with 67 in Oxford, New Albany, and Red Bay, 68 around Tupelo, 69 Houston and Amory, and low 70s being seen Golden Triangle and for portions south and west. So it's going to be a warm one for sure, but those toasty conditions were in place today. They just continue to build over the next couple of days as well. All right, as we take a look at our Wednesday evening, of course, those dry conditions do remain overhead, but then we start to make more room for those rain chances as we work our way into Thursday. So Thursday morning, still going to stick with those dry skies, but if we work our way out right here, we can see a little bit of that moisture already starting to move in for parts of Little Rock. That is, of course, the leading edge of our next system. This is going to be one of those short waves that work our way through the Midwest, all the way out there in Denver, Colorado. But as that builds its way across the central part of the United States, you can already see some of those frontal systems that are starting to form right along Oklahoma City. And then, of course, that warm front building into North Mississippi already by 6 a.m. So with this warm front, and I believe I can draw this out for you guys. I'm just going to do a line. you're basically getting this area right here. And whenever we get this warm front that's drawn right along there, that's going to build in those southerly winds once again, and that's where this moisture is going to return to North Mississippi and, of course, give us the more destabilized air compared to what we've been seeing. So let me go ahead and bring it back in here real quick because, of course, with that moisture, we're not exactly going to see cool temperatures. So that's why our low temperatures Thursday going to be around 52 degrees Tupelo, Boonville, and Corinth, as well as 53 Eupora, 57 Greenwood, Belzona, and same thing around Greenville. But as we get into the rest of our Thursday, you can see that moisture does remain overhead and actually continues to build as we work our way into that afternoon time frame. So there you're getting a look at that warm sector, that warm front lifting across the Tennessee and Arkansas area, and of course bringing back that moisture here to North Mississippi. So a few isolated showers, not an impossibility, but as we work our way into the afternoon forecast, that's where I would expect a few of those pop-up showers to remain in place. Of course, the best chances, if we expand things out, are well up north and west into Missouri and Kansas, but North Mississippi, light to moderate showers, definitely going to be in the forecast as we work our way into those afternoon plans. By the time we get into those evening hours, of course, you do see some of those thunderstorms already starting to form right along the Arkansas area, but then those start to work their way east into North Mississippi, bettering our chances at storms overnight and really into our Friday. So high temperatures Thursday, 70 degrees in Boonville, 72 Oxford, Senatobia, and Tunica, 76 Greenwood and Kosciuszko. You do notice our record, 73 degrees. Not out of the possibilities that we set a new record or at least tie that record here in North Mississippi for our Thursday. And not exactly feeling like January whatsoever. All right, this is a look at Futurecast, and what we did was we layered multiple things on here. Of course, this is Futurecast with our strike model, but all of this red right here, that's the energy that is in place for some of these storms to become a little bit stronger and maybe even severe as this line works its way on through. So this is, of course, midnight 30 on your Friday, so just getting your Friday started, and you see this large batch of energy well south into Louisiana and southeast Texas. What that energy is doing right there is allowing all this moisture right here to build those storm tops and, of course, elevate some of these storms to produce some thunderstorms and maybe even some strong storms. If we bring it in here real quick and allow me to do so right here on our strike model, you can see some of these storms not exactly out of the possibilities that we do get some of those be on the stronger side, but that threat is going to be primarily to the south, and as that energy continues to build throughout the day, that is going to allow even more of that development by the afternoon to build in and potentially become severe. So this first round of storms, as Matt was talking about it at the 6 o'clock hour, we don't expect any of those to be severe. It's going to be by the afternoon that those severe weather threats start to move in place. But where we're watching is, of course, this large mass of showers and thunderstorms that work their way through North Mississippi in the early morning hours. That'll eat up a large part of our energy. So those folks that have not seen any rainfall, we do expect that to be the area where it could be primed for more strong storms and potentially severe and potentially rotating storms as well, as that's not out of the realm of possibilities. So 3 p.m., we continue to see that energy build into the Jackson area. So this Jackson and Natchez area, I would say, is basically primed with that cape, with that energy to produce some of these strong storms. But that does get into North Mississippi just a bit. And of course, Matt, I would say that, there is a limiting factor when it comes to our chances of severe weather. But down here around the Golden Triangle and really further south, I would say that's our area to watch for if we remain dry throughout those early morning rain chances.
Yeah, I think that's where the limiting factor is the most limited, so to speak. Is farther north there. I mean, you can almost directly see the instability difference there, right? I mean, it's almost like right southern Itala County on this, where you have individual storms south and you have just mainly elevated rain up north. Elevated meaning it forms above the boundary layer, elevated meaning not much of a tornado threat. So I think things definitely on this particular projection on strike look better for locations in North Mississippi to avoid the worst of this, but we expect some changes. And what we were looking at earlier in this block, with that shift kind of westward on some of the projections there, that would open up a little more clearing down south, and that would then open the door for potentially more of those storms to be stronger farther north. So while the projections, you can clearly see the north-south difference there, I want to just keep in mind that it would not take much, a little bit more heating, a little more clearing to get things a little bit more significant.
And this environment, I would say that the cape or the energy we've been talking about has been something that's trended a little bit higher as each model run has come out. We measure it in, of course, joules per kilogram. I know that's meteorology. It really doesn't matter in this case, but we measure it in joules per kilogram. We had about 600 24 hours ago. Well, now moving into these hours, it's about 800 joules per kilogram, which is, of course, a little bit higher. And that, of course, ups that severe weather potential because in an environment where it's primed for some of that stronger development, that's what we'd expect with some of these brighter values, especially down south into Natchez and Jackson. But that's something I'm watching over the next 24 hours is if those values get even higher. And of course, that means it's an even more unstable air mass. And then, of course, the storms will follow suit. So that line works its way on through by 9 p.m., trying to move out of the area. I would say our severe weather potential is very limited by midnight. So those early morning hours of our Saturday, I think that threat shifts it more into Alabama, and we're going to be sitting in a much calmer state of mind for our weekend forecast. And that does start into our Friday night and Saturday morning. So we just have to basically stay alert as long as there's a PM after the time frame, but we'll get that time frame more aligned over the next several days. So that's what those short range models will help us tell a little bit more as we work our way into that forecast. All right. What we're going to track out now, and Matt, feel free to chime in at any point on this because we're going to be tracking storm rotation. And Matt, you did look at this at the 6 o'clock hour, and one of the things that is of note is we do have a few bright returns that mean that there is going to be some rotation with a few of these storms. And I'm going to keep it on North Mississippi because we track the long-range model. We know that there is the potential for some rotation further south, but watch as we work these storms into our forecast. So this is that morning threat. And again, you don't see any rotation with this. We don't really expect severe weather to be happening with this main batch of showers and storms in the early morning hours. But as we get into the afternoon, you're starting to get some of those stripes. And this is very faint. And if you look at our legend at the top of the screen, that's more on the limited side of things. But then we get into that afternoon threat, and you can see how those lines get a little bit more pronounced. And that is going to be that sheer swath, that potential for some rotation as those storms work their way through the area. And Greenwood, one that stands out for sure. But I would say this is just going to be that warm sector, allowing for potentially some of these isolated cells to maybe interact with the environment in the right way and potentially briefly rotate into a tornado.
Okay, this is the same model because it looks like, I'll be perfectly honest, I've been working on some other things. I got a blue background now, I got blue. But what's interesting about this is that looks like this is way farther northwest. Is this the same model we showed a second? And I know it is, but my question to you is not whether it's the same model, but whether or not it looks the same as what you showed a moment ago.
No, okay,
because I know it's the same model, but what I don't know is if it didn't just update.
It very well could have.
Let's look at the projection there. That, I mean, possibly.
Because it looks like it's more clear right here, golden triangle, than even what the strike model was a moment ago. So I see what you're talking about.
Let's take this out of play mode here, and let's kind of fiddle with this for a second. Let's hop ahead here. One of the things that immediately catches my eye on this is just how cellular this stuff is, right? At this point here, I still have some breaks in the overall line. I mean, I can count a couple of individual, pretty decent looking storms there at 3 p.m. And I'm going to go back just a moment here because even to like 2 to 3 o'clock, there are some pretty good gaps in between this, in where this line is there. So this is, a big bunch, everything up north here, Grenada, Oxford on this projection. That's just all rain. That's nothing I'm overly worried about on this projection. But the thing I do note is that at 6 o'clock, we were saying that kind of cutoff was maybe just north of Kosciuszko, right? Mm-hmm. Now it's maybe a county farther north. This is Tuesday, right? You do this a few more model runs, and pretty quickly, you get farther and farther north. So I understand the projections we're showing look very much like future radar, and that's the whole point. But understand that it's the trends related to this that's important. And if this newest model run comes in with that trend farther north, that's something to certainly keep in mind. The one that catches my eye is this one near Kosciuszko, because I'll note that I can already see, again, Yazoo City, this looks like a splitting storm there. That looks like a cell that's out in front. And again, when we were in, the summer season, we talked about this model, this strike model being a little too aggressive, and maybe that's where this lands as well. But just kind of looking at this there, I mean, that is a lead supercell that's rotating. And again, rotating doesn't mean it will for sure produce tornadoes, but there's a couple spots there. We get a couple in a row that try to do that somewhere in that time frame. And yeah, there's one a little farther north that might be elevated where it's spinning but can't get at the surface. That a lot of times happens in this scenario where you get some of these on the forecast track. It's like, oh, we got maybe a tornado producer possibly up here. And no, it's spinning, but it cannot get that rotation to last, half mile down the surface. So I do think we'll see some of these that are a little too far north. That one near Bruce and Tupelo on this projection definitely looks like that. But certainly I would say things are maybe a county farther north on some of those versus what we were looking at 5 and 6 o'clock. Is that a fair statement?
No, I would agree with that for sure.
This also looks kind of like a bow echo there too, the kind of where maybe you're trying to spin up something. Sometimes on the leading edge you have a little thing that's going to try to spin up tornadoes. On the front edge, that might be what that is. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you're good. And I think that wind is still going to be the main threat with this, but the potential for those brief spin-ups is definitely not out of the question. And I will say, looking at the, the nerd stuff behind the scenes, some of those LCLs or that cloud deck that we were talking about, down south, they do get low enough to where we could get some of those brief spin-ups to take place. And of course, like you're talking about, if this works its way north in that same area that I was looking at for, the primed ingredients, that becomes our forecast here in North Mississippi. So that's why it's important. Next 24 to 48 hours, we will have those updated short-range model runs, a little bit more high definition as well, and we can compare those together and of course compare that to what we've already been tracking the past couple of days to get that better line for timing as well as those impacts. So 24 hours, I would say, is going to tell the big story on what could be our Friday threat.
Absolutely. I'll let you finish this last couple of graphics here, including your SEC football forecast for Ole Miss. And then we're going to come back. We're going to answer some questions there. Some folks wanting to know that just have joined a little late what's going on. We will get that all for you here in just a moment. But Gabe, I'll let you go ahead and roll on.
Perfect. Well, yeah, for those that are just joining us, this is what we're talking about, and that is your Friday severe weather threat. Currently, that level 2 out of 5 remains in place, but one of the things we're also going to get, of course, with it being a day 4 outlook, we don't really go past this level 2 risk, but we'll get that better aligned with some of those areas with the SPC as we work our way into tomorrow morning with meteorologist Maggie McCauley. And of course, we'll update you guys at 5, 6, and 10 on your Wednesday evening to know how to assess this just a little bit better. And pair that with those short-range model runs, I think we'll get a better idea here in the next 24 hours. But those threats that we're looking for, of course, the one that stands out to you is that low confidence on the tornado threat. A brief spin up is definitely possible with this system, but the wind remains that primary threat, as Matt was mentioning a moment ago, that bow echo potential as well. I mean, when you ever get that leading edge, that of course produces some strong winds, but even some strong winds within some of those individual cells out ahead of the system. With the magnitude of rainfall we're seeing, 3 to 5 inches, not an impossibility, and that could produce some flash flooding as well. We don't exactly expect this to be a hail threat, but still that chance is there if some of these just interact in the right way with the environment that it'll be in. So yes, we're going to be tracking a multitude of things as we work over the next couple of days, but the best way to stay prepared right now, and Matt, if you want to take over on this one, is have those layers of protection. And the Mississippi Live Weather app, of course, one of those, but Weather Call, that saves lives. We've heard it several times from folks around North Mississippi. Of course, helped us out here at Mississippi Live Weather and our family.
Oop, I did not mean to do that. I thought that would actually keep Gabe on there while we did that as well. I'll talk about that in a second. Go ahead and Gabe.
It's all good. It's all good. And honestly, if you want to take over, feel free. But yeah, Weather Call, layers of protection, build that armor as we head over the next 48 hours. Oh, Matt, if you want to take over and talk about it, feel free.
Takes me a second to punch the right buttons here behind the scenes as I'm kind of working on some stuff here, just kind of getting everything ready. Yeah, I mean, those layers are hugely important when we start talking about active and severe weather. And so, as you could say, build the armor there, as I've said for years there. Make sure you have Mississippi Live Weather Call, the Mississippi Live Weather app. You can download that with the QR codes you see next to me there. Code Red, hopefully revamped and working better. It's that extra layer because we want everything to seem like it's going off at the same time. It's like, what in the world? So you can't ignore the fact that, hey, something is going on for you. That's the most likely scenario in which you're going to know for sure that we're going to get to that safe place. And one of the things that Gabe mentioned a moment ago, again, we talk a lot about is Weather Call. And the reason Weather Call is just so important is because, again, it is a phone alert. My phone has gotten, who knows how many alerts over the last, 15, 20 minutes or so. I can ignore those, but if my phone rings, it goes off. You can't ignore that, or it's a lot more difficult to ignore. So it lets you know, it's precise to your location, and will keep you safe in case of severe weather? We're going to get to those questions here in just a minute, but I do want to, before we head back to Gabe for a second, remind everyone that tomorrow morning our meteorologist Maggie McCauley will have updates starting at 6:30 a.m. She's on 6:37, 7:30 a.m. every single weekday, letting you know basically everything you need to know about severe weather potential, and of course just getting you out the door with that dense fog advisory. She'll have updates tomorrow morning. Check out Maggie for the latest. And as I bring Gabe back in here for a moment, we got to get the SEC football forecast in there, and then we'll answer some questions. So I'm going to let you run with that.
Well, perfect. Well, I won't sit on it too long because it's looking like a beautiful forecast in Glendale, Arizona. Of course, the Ole Miss Rebels took off today and are heading off to face the Miami Hurricanes. So I guess, there's a hurricane warning in Glendale. I don't know. Rebels might be able to tame the storm, but that's what we're going to be looking at heading into our Thursday night. Of course, talking to our Will Kohlmeyer in more detail about that matchup over the next couple of days. So all hands on deck here in the Room to Room Weather Center as we head through this week with severe weather possible and, of course, a big matchup with the Fiesta Bowl. 59 degrees first play, low 50s by that final snap. So folks heading out there, looking like a good forecast. You might be able to dodge some storms in the process. But Matt, definitely going to be a good time and excited to see what happens because I know one Rebel fan is definitely looking forward to that matchup for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Gabe. Yeah, I know a lot of folks are. So I'm going to bring it back over here to the severe weather threat. We're going to talk through some of the questions that folks are asking about here as we bring it back in to my location here. Let's kind of work through some of those. So someone was asking, okay, weather call set up separately. They have weather call set up and they wanted to know, is this different than the other weather call back at the station? The answer is yes. I might as well put it back on the weather call graphic here for a moment. It does a more accurate job at a few things. In particular, it has some non-severe alerts, some text messages that you can get when tornado watches and severe thunderstorm watches are pushed. There's also a lightning component to it as well. Those things are new on the weather call. But ultimately, the main basis, the main reason I would talk about weather call isn't any of those things. It's because of the peace of mind that you get and the old one and the new one. From the first time I talked about weather call back at KAMC TV in Lubbock, Texas, to the time I'm talking about it today, it's the call part of it for tornado warnings and severe thunderstorm warnings that's the most important, and that is something that's been with it from the very get-go. Now, obviously, having the weather call that we have does support us here on Mississippi Live Weather. The reason there's a cost is because it does cost money to make phone calls. It's as simple, data is, to do a push alert on your phone requires almost no data. But to make a phone call actually requires a dialer to make connections, long distance connections to your phone. And there is a cost involved in that. When you start multiplying that by all the phone numbers and all the phones out there, it does, for the infrastructure that it takes to make sure everything is accurate and fast. There are costs involved. So that's the reason that it does cost, but I strongly believe that it is worth every penny because, we're at that time of night that my phone goes on Do Not Disturb. But I can swipe up here and I can show you that if I go to my phone there and I go to my favorites, there's a number of people in there, including my beautiful wife and Mr. Gabe Maynard there. But if I scroll down a little bit, the one on bottom there is Weather Call Alert. And by putting it in my favorites, what that does is that makes it to where it will bust through my Do Not Disturb. So now, no matter whether I am in Do Not Disturb or sleep or whatever, if there's a tornado warning, it's going to call me and let me know. So that's the benefit is, and especially the kids, so I'm talking to maybe grandparents here as well, and parents, that kids don't really talk on the phone anymore. They text, right? But a phone call means something has happened. Has somebody got hurt? Why are you calling me? And so that's where, even purchasing weather call for those people, I think is a benefit because it kind of already gels with the way their mind thinks. Oh, if it's a phone call, it must be bad. Of course, I'll bring on a meteorologist, Gabe Maynard, as far as that's concerned. He knows that I'm of that generation that just calls no matter what. I'm like, I hate text messaging. But your generation, well, not you, it's Caleb. Not he's that much more, but it's always funny talking on the phone with Caleb, because when you talk on the phone with Caleb, I just hear bzz, bzz, the entire time as his phone is buzzing as he's getting text messages while he's talking to me. It's the funniest thing. It's nonstop text messages.
Yeah, he's a popular guy, and working with him the exact same way. It's like, is it mine? No, I don't get notifications. So it's always Caleb.
Well, so I will say this. I see Chris asking, are we expecting an upgrade in level for the number of reports? And that's what this graphic comes back to. I think it's possible. Huh?
I was going to say, do you want my opinion on it?
Yes.
I don't think they upgrade heading into tomorrow morning. I think once we get short-range models, that
No. I don't think they do tomorrow morning. I think it's probably later this week. Hold on. I'm going to pull that back up.
If the positioning does how it's trended so far, and that's built a little bit more north, and you have those individual supercells that could potentially move through the area, then I think an upgrade, not an impossibility, potentially working our way into maybe that day one risk or a few hours before, maybe to a level 3. I don't think we go past that with what I'm seeing right now, but I would say not an impossibility at all.
I would strongly say level 4, level 5 are off of the table. They're non-thing. Could we end up with a level 3? What would it take? So in order for us to end up with a level 3 risk, and I would be guessing if it's going to happen somewhere down in this zone, maybe as far north as this is possible, but we have a lot of uphill on that before that's the case. You would definitely probably at that point be, expanding your level 1. I don't know that we go any farther north. We might go farther east, and I would say, that seems more reasonable on your level 2. Huh?
I think we could definitely go south because of the amount of energy that they're getting right around southern Mississippi and even southern Louisiana too.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I think maybe it ends up like this because of the the daily period there. So I think, but where do you put this level? And again, this kind of implies with the color there 4. What I'm looking at is level 3. So I apologize for the fact that we're all red on there. I mean, I think it's too early. What I'm looking for is if we get more of those individual discrete storm cells. That's when I think it's a lot more likely we end up with an upgrade to level 3. I think once we see confidence in some discrete storms, I think level 3 is on the table with the potential for a slightly greater tornado risk. That remains very possible, but the location, I would say, very much in flux.
I would agree with you on that. Yeah, I think,
fair statement.
Again, I think we'll get a lot more answers over the next 24 hours, but I don't think they pull that tomorrow. I think this will be probably a day 1, maybe day 1.5 at the earliest that we start to see maybe a day 3 being issued. Or not day 3, level 3.
Yeah, we'll see about that. We still have another day or so.
Yes.
Someone was mentioning, Raitha Smith was mentioning she has weather call, code red, and FEMA app. Perfect. I need to add FEMA app. Remind me after the show, Gabe. I got to add that to our list there. Okay. FEMA app is a great one as well because it makes sure. But unfortunately, that's something I have to go in and actually add to the graphic. We'll eventually get there. But the FEMA app is good. It's another alert. We want basically everything to going off on your phone at once, so that way that you've got some issues there. Pamela wanted to hear. We're talking with Pamela there. Let's see.
River asking.
Someone else mentioned Mississippi Live weather call features my voice. That is a big difference there. As well. Go ahead, Gabe. And your audio's gotten real, and it's not your fault. It's just my earpiece here. Gotten real light, so I'm going to have to listen closely. Go for it.
Okay, I'll try and yell. No, I'm kidding. River was
no, that's
saying,
fine now.
Oh, perfect. Well, it might be whenever we're both talking, it might kind of put mine a step back. I don't know. I'm not a tech wizard like yourself.
Yeah, I have the demote Gabe Maynard thing in the system. It's like, well, do we really want to hear from Gabe? No, anyway, go ahead.
Do you really? That's the question at 10:48.
Yes, absolutely want to hear from Gabe. I think, and let's stop. This is not a joke for a second here. And I've said this, and people can quote me. I was in Aberdeen yesterday, and I said this again. I said Gabe Maynard is at least 1.5 to 2 years ahead of where I was at his age. So Gabe is extremely sharp for his age and is going to be probably a better meteorologist than me someday. So what you have to say does really make a big difference, honestly. And that's not me just, blowing you full of smoke. That is the reality of the situation. So, all joking aside, I say that all the time to people. So anyway, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I appreciate it, but you are still the legend, Matt. So no, it's
what I will say
about this. What I will say about this is River makes a great point with this. One thing to note: a tornado can happen in any risk level 1 to 5. The risk level has to do with the amount of expected storms. One note with that: It's the amount of expected reports, and that's damage reports whenever it comes to wind, tornado, or hail. And so that's why you get those individual risk areas. And one note with the level 4 or day 4 risk is you don't get those individual risk areas just yet. As we work our way into day 1 and day 2 risk, then we get those individual thresholds with wind, tornado, and hail. And I think that'll tell a better story. But we can already get an idea right now that there will be some level of tornado threat with this system. If it's a level 1, if it's a level 2, to be honest, it doesn't matter because there is still that potential. And you don't know if that one report could be your home, and that's why we want you guys to stay prepared. So I figured that was a great note to say that don't really pay attention to the color of the graphic. If you're in the graphic, then that's enough for you guys to take action and get those layers prepared right now.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that Pamela saying she signed up for Weather Call now. Again, timing the midday through evening, Patrick, on Friday in particular. Okay, and I will say this is one thing that I think James with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers noticed, and he nailed. Give me a moment here to be able to kind of read what I'm looking for on this. You know, talking about the rainfall amounts. Let me clear off all the other junk on the graphic here. You know, some significant rainfall possible. There's the 1 to 5. You know, where we're talking 2 to 3 inches of rainfall. I know I have. Ignore the fact that I'm going to make like a monitor pop up in front of me here. I just can't read it very well at this angle. The excessive rainfall risk, you know, we only do through Thursday at this point here. We do expect as we look toward Friday, it's possible to have more locations probably added to that excessive rainfall risk as we get a little bit closer. But yeah, looking there, obviously on your Thursday, the rainfall mainly light. Friday and into early Saturday. Again, that does start adding up to maybe a couple of inches of rainfall potentially. And honestly, we could be underdoing that a little bit. I do want us to check the flash flooding risk is a short-term thing. That's kind of a new, there's a lot of exclusive products here that we're still kind of learning how to utilize as we get a little closer to this. Gabe, go ahead.
Well, I mean, with this, is this the Weather Prediction Center?
Yeah, it was the Weather Prediction Center, yeah.
Yeah, so Weather Prediction Center, and that's new also. Severe weather risk for Thursday. That originally was not there.
Yes,
that's
they put that out, I think, midday there. You know, the severe weather risk back to the west of us for Thursday. You know, I think, you know, it would be close to dawn if it were out here on the eastern side of this. But even then, it's certainly mostly back to the north and west.
Well, and the timing with severe weather risk areas, it's going to be confusing because it's not Thursday. It's going to be Thursday leading up until 6 a.m. and then it moves into the next day. And so that's where...
Yeah, I was going to put 12A, and that's not right. It's 12Z. Go ahead.
You could have put a Z right after that, and you would have been exactly right. But yeah, so 6 a.m. is whenever that wraps up, and then it moves into Friday's threat. And so that overlap right there, I think, already tells me that there is still confusion on timing, even at the Storm Prediction Center, with the system working its way on through. And so you do have some overlap right here on the river to where that could be either a Thursday, or I guess Friday early a.m., or potentially, you know, Friday later a.m., and then on into the rest of your afternoon. So, yeah, that level 1 threat's in place, and I do expect that level 2 to follow suit with Friday as well as we work into tomorrow as well.
Okay. So anyway, we'll continue to update you as we get a little closer. Our next broadcast is...
I'll take over, Matt. Our next broadcast is going to be happening at 6:30 a.m. So honestly, this graphic was not too far from it. You could have used that for multiple things. But go ahead and download that Mississippi Live Weather app today, and it keeps you updated on those live shows and that 24/7 stream accessible at the top of the app at any point. Our next broadcast, 6:30, 7, and 7:30 with meteorologist Maggie McCauley, and we will be back at 5, 6, and 10. The next 24 hours, very important that you guys pay attention as short model runs come out. And of course, we'll keep you updated here on Mississippi Live Weather for the very latest on what you guys need to know.
I don't know why you're so sad. You've got a roof over your head.
You gotta stop with that depression stuff.
You alright?
It just feels like it's coming from everywhere.
Do you want to talk about it?
You can talk to me if you're feeling sad.
Whenever you need to talk, I'm here, okay?